This meeting is now being recorded.
Good evening. Welcome to the EDS Awareness Educational Series webinar. Tonight we have a very special presentation on our survey results, and we're glad you joined us. We'd like to give an overview first of our free program for those who are attending the first time. And my name is Deanna Hamm. I lead the EDS support group in Cleveland, and I volunteer with the EDS Awareness Program along with my father, John Ferman. Our program is dedicated to my mom, who struggled with undiagnosed EDS for over 30 years. Sadly, she passed away in 2008, which was the same year I was diagnosed with hypermobile EDS. We introduced our program at the 2012 EDNF conference to help EDSers form independent local support groups and spread EDS awareness in their communities. We've started over 100 groups to date. Each group is given their own free website linked to our directory and map. At the conferences, we receive feedback that they provide valuable information and social opportunities, but there are many who cannot afford physically or financially to attend in person. So we decided to bring the speakers to you through the free EDS Awareness Educational Series. We meet every first and third Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All the programs are free. The meeting announcements and, whenever possible, the recordings of the webinars will be posted on our website at edsawareness.com or connecteenpartners.com for later replay. You can receive email announcements for future sessions by requesting the free report on our site. Tonight's presentation is sponsored by BodySupportStore.com, offering over 250 products selected by EDSers for EDSers. The store is the only funding for this program and usually covers our monthly web fees. Please visit our store and check out the helpful products we offer. Just a general disclaimer. This presentation contains general information about EDS. Members of the EDS community voluntarily participate in this program, and the information is not advice. If you are having medical problems now, please call 911 and always consult your doctor before making any changes to your self-care or treatment. And our next upcoming webinar in June, we're going to have Dr. Afrin present about mast cell activation syndrome. That will be on June 21st. And again, tonight is a special presentation of our results of the EDS Worldwide Survey, which was presented in May to many of the attendees at the symposium in New York City. And presenters will be myself and John Ferman. And just a little bit about John. He's the co-founder of the EDS Awareness Program based in Cincinnati. And he continues to develop and manage this program as a full-time volunteer. John is a retired professional project manager, IT professional, and distinguished Toastmaster DTM. He has held many leadership roles in a variety of high-tech companies and community organizations, including assisting the startup of a 24-hour volunteer crisis hotline in the Cleveland area. And John and myself started the EDS Awareness Program in 2012.
Our additional speaker is Deanna, my daughter. She earned her pre-med degree and has more than 10 years experience in medical publishing field. She started the Cleveland EDS support group in 2011, and it's grown to 150 plus members. She volunteers as able to help mentor support groups, coordinate webinars, and consult on editorial and patient health aspects of this program. So I will be starting off the program, and then Deanna will take on after that. So if you bear with me, we'll get our slides up and get started. So again, this is a presentation of EDS Worldwide Survey results. We're very excited about presenting this. There's been a lot of hard work behind it, and it's well worth the time and the work that we had. So let me get this on here. Okay. So the EDS awareness program was developed and sponsored through an online survey of opinions and experiences of individuals who have been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or those who are suspected of having EDS. So this was an online type of survey. Invitations to participate in the survey were sent through email, social media, and to our network of local EDS support groups all over the world. So a team of EDS support group leaders created 60 survey questions and summarized the results, which were released in May, as Deanna was mentioning. The survey was only published in English, which limited responses to English-speaking patients. Because the survey was conducted online, patients without a computer, without internet access, or those with limited ability to use a computer may not be represented in the results. Participants had the option to skip questions that did not apply to their particular situation. We were excited to have 2,544 responses from 26 countries. We had this survey online for 6 weeks. The initial result distribution, as we mentioned, was on May 2nd at the International Symposium for EDS in New York City. And I was pleased to be invited to that symposium and personally distributed the survey summary to many doctors and symposium participants. So just kind of a review, you'll notice that this presentation will typically display a graph and or a table representing the detailed data. This slide, for example, as representation is posted on our website along with the link to the results summary booklet, which was distributed at the symposium. So you're going to be able to see the summary, and you'll be able to go back and look at these slides and see the details that we have in the presentation. Because of the detailed nature of these slides, they may not be legible on a phone or a tablet. Some of these slides have a lot of data on them. We'll try to describe it and summarize it for you as we go. So let's get started. The first question is, what is the gender of the survey participants? And obviously the majority of the participants were female. And this is typical of the detailed chart that you're going to see. Now, 93.47%, or let's say 93% of female, but you're going to find that we will round the numbers up or down and be able to summarize them that way. Many times we're going to skip over these because the graph will actually give the presentation that we're looking for. So 48% were between the ages of 21 and 40, and 38% were 41 years or older. So if you can see the little lines here and the bars, you can see 31 to 40 years and 40 to 50 and above. So this is the nature of the charts that you're going to be seeing, and we're going to summarize them for you. So again, this is the detailed percentages, but we're going to skip over those and just go with the charts because I think they explain the information a lot better. So as a group, our participants were very well educated, with 42% having a bachelor's degree or higher in college. The majority of the respondents were Caucasian. So approximately 25% of the respondents' annual income was under $25,000. Now, note that in a 2014 U.S. Census, they indicated the poverty level for a family of four was below 24,000. So it's kind of at that threshold. Also, nearly 20% had an income over $100,000. So there was quite a wide range of income for our participants. So we had responses from 26 countries. There's a fairly balanced response from 4 regions of the U.S., which represented about 66% of the total respondents. Canada had about 5%, UK nearly 15%, as well as 15% from other countries. So the other countries included Australia, Sweden, Ireland, New Zealand, and you can see that we had quite a range in Italy, Mexico. You can see the list. So we were pretty pleased that we were actually getting out to so many people. So almost 65% of the respondents were U.S. citizens having health insurance, but 2% without. So again, you're welcome to go back and look at this data and the total quantity of people that responded and what percentage indicated that they had health insurance. Now, 34% having health insurance through a family member's employer. 18% live outside the U.S. and have socialized medicine. 15% have private health care insurance. 17% are on Medicare or Medicaid, and nearly 3% have no insurance at all. So the majority responding to the survey, actually 78%, were diagnosed with hypermobile form of EDS. Another 10% were diagnosed with classical type and 2% with vascular. Approximately 10% were not categorized as a subtype. So they were told they had EDS, but were not told what type of EDS they had. Now this chart gets a little busier. And how long until you receive the correct diagnosis for EDS? 54% took more than 10 years to receive the correct diagnosis for EDS. This group includes 31% seeking diagnosis for over 20 plus years, which is consistent with the poll that we have out on our site for the last few years. So 1,171 participants indicated that they had children. 48%, just less than half of the respondents. So it's kind of 50-50 between those that had children and those that did not. On average, participants had 2 children. This represents a bit more than 2,500 children. So you can see from this chart, we have an indication of the percentage that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or greater than 6 children. So 82% of the parents participating in the survey reported at least one child had symptoms of EDS. These results show a total of 1,667 children who show signs or were diagnosed with EDS. This suggests that 67% of the respondents' children are affected by EDS. And you can go through the calculations with the data that's here, but we wanted to summarize it for you to make it clearer and that you didn't have to go through the calculations. Well, the charts get a little bit more detailed, and hopefully you're able to see this one. But the significant part of this chart is that 71% of the 2,300 respondents reported that their primary EDS diagnosis was provided by either a geneticist or a rheumatologist. There were some that were primary care and others, but primarily it was those two that provided them the diagnosis. The question was, how many doctors treated your EDS-specific symptoms before a proper diagnosis was made? So 38% of the respondents reported seeing between 1 and 5 doctors before being diagnosed with EDS. Another 33% reported seeing more than 10 doctors to have their condition diagnosed. And there were a group of 13% who reported seeing more than 20 doctors to be correctly diagnosed. So the majority of the respondents, actually 76%, were relieved to get their diagnosis. 40% accepted the diagnosis. Actually, 2,796 were also, 27% were devastated to find out that they had an incurable condition. So you can see there were other responses, but those were the significant ones that we identified. So this one, the graph really didn't make sense, and hopefully you can see the details. There's a lot of details related to this one, but we tried to summarize it for you. First of all, the respondents were asked about their experience leading up to the diagnosis. 96% of the diagnosing doctors demonstrated to the patient that they were knowledgeable about EDS and had no hesitation in making the diagnosis, compared to the previous doctors who showed this knowledge only 7 or 9% of the time. So doctors who participants had seen before their diagnosis demonstrated a lack of knowledge, some hesitation, confusion, and uncertainty. 92% demonstrated that they were not knowledgeable about EDS or had to look it up on the internet online. 97% labeled the patient with a psychiatric condition to explain their EDS-related symptoms, as compared to only 6% receiving a psychiatric label by the doctor who finally diagnosed them with EDS. In approximately 50% of the cases, both the diagnosing doctor and those seen previously demonstrated a similar degree of uncertainty as to which type of EDS the patient had. So even though we have doctors that are diagnosing you with EDS, some of them are still confused as to what version, what type, what classification of EDS you have. So 97% of those responding reported chronic pain, which is typically defined as pain lasting for more than 6 months. 78% also experienced acute pain. 76% had neuropathic or nerve-related pain, and 64% reported unexplained pain. So pain was a key issue throughout this survey that we did. There are the detailed data. So we have 3 sets of charts outlining how patients rate their chronic pain: most severe, least severe, and typical pain. So you might want to come back and look at this a little later, but we tried to come up with a general statement that 73% rate their pain at 8 to 10 at the most severe level. Of those, 27% experience a 10 on the pain scale. And finally, for 62%, the typical pain level is between a 4 and a 6. So a very complicated chart. You're welcome to come back and look at it. Here's the data that's associated with that particular question that we had on what is your pain level, your pain scale. So 85% of the respondents report that they had trouble getting a diagnosis of the type of pain they are experiencing. "83% indicated that their healthcare providers do not understand the types and severity of pain in EDS, which is consistent with some of the other information that we just received. Okay, another busy chart, but again, we're going to summarize it for you. 73% of the people reported their pain began before 20 years of age. Okay, so we added up the first 2 lines up there and indicated 73% before 20 years of age. 36% of those experienced chronic pain under 10 years of age. So obviously it's starting early, and 36% saw chronic pain before the age of 10. "71% of the respondents report that they do not feel that their pain is being adequately controlled. So again, we tried to summarize this a little bit for you. So more specifically, only 29% are very or somewhat satisfied with their pain management. 21% are neutral, but 50% are very and somewhat dissatisfied with their pain management.
Next, we asked what is the limit with limiting the effectiveness of your pain management. And the most common reasons for ineffective pain management is attributed to difficulty in finding a medication that works. 61% of respondents stated they had this problem. 52% of the individuals are having reactions to medications that they tried. 29% stated that their medical providers are reluctant to prescribe enough medications or a large enough dose to be effective. And 26% state that their doctors are reluctant to prescribe any pain medication. And then this question talked about which classifications of meds respondents had tried and about their effectiveness. So one bar represents pain medications they tried, and the other rates effectiveness in the blue there, you see. We had 2009 individuals respond to this question. And the two most effective classifications were opioids with 77% reporting effectiveness and cannabis or medical marijuana with 88% reporting effectiveness. But it's important to note that the medical marijuana respondents, there were only 38 of them who had tried cannabis. Of course, this is still illegal in many locations, so because of the small sample, further research may be needed. So you can see here some of the other things that were tried. Some of the effectiveness percentages are somewhat discouraging. Does indicate that a fair number of people are finding some relief from muscle relaxants. Not as much with the ketamine or the NSAIDs. And then we can go on to talk more about those adverse reactions that people were experiencing. 67% reported adverse reactions. And then on the next slide, the reactions are detailed here. Some of the most common reactions include constipation, 60%, brain fog or lightheadedness are both roughly 58%, and gastrointestinal issues and nausea both come in around 53%, headaches at 41%. And some additional reactions shown on this graph include 41% needing a much higher dosage to achieve the typical response to the med. So a lot of anecdotal reports about people needing higher or lower dosages, and some of this data indicates that tends to be an issue for many. Also, 41% have experienced insomnia, and 27% have allergic reactions. And you can look at more details on the PDF that we're going to provide to you if you'd like to hone in a little bit more on some of these other specific reactions. Moving on to the next one, at what age did you experience onset of severe symptoms? And this shows that 60% reported they started to experience severe symptoms between 11 and 30 years old. And what symptoms are you experiencing consistently? Not surprisingly, 95% are experiencing consistent pain. 91 report issues with joint stability. 80% indicate central nervous system issues, for example, dysautonomia, POTS, or headache. 78% have fatigue and or sleep dysfunction. 76% have digestive system issues. Also interesting to note is that 28% have a mast cell activation diagnosis or symptoms of mast cell. And along with that, 39% report allergic reactions. As a side note, some members of this allergic group may not be aware of or have been tested for mast cell activation syndrome, so that would be something to do some further surveying on that topic. And we're moving along to some section that relates to abilities and disabilities. This question talked about the living situation of the respondent. 80% live with another person or with their family. I thought it was interesting that 71% cannot perform regular housework or cleaning. For 85% of the respondents, EDS affects their ability to care for themselves and or their household needs. And this slide is a continuation of that question, giving you a little bit more detail. And then again, the specific statistics that you can review later. It's a lot to read through, but there's some interesting information that can be gleaned from this chart. And moving on to question 33, how often are you able to do the following activities? Again, this has a lot of information on the chart, but just to summarize, 1,600 respondents quantified their ability to do the following tasks. And for the purpose of going through this chart more quickly, we've combined the responses in green and in blue, which pertain to always or only on a good day, and we've combined those into one percentage for you. So for example, 89% always or on a good day can bathe, 9% only if necessary, and 2% never. 77% always or on a good day could cook, 17% only if necessary, and 6% never. 71% could walk greater than 10 minutes, always or on a good day, 18% if necessary, and 11% never. Conversely, 70% could drive, always or on a good day, 12% if necessary, and 18% never. Shopping, 67% always or on a good day, 27% if necessary, and 6% never. And 65% could lift greater than 5 pounds, always or on a good day, 24% if necessary, and 11% never. And moving along here, the last one I'll comment on is standing greater than 10 minutes. 58% always or on a good day, 28% if necessary, and 14% never. Probably reflects concerns with cause and autonomic dysfunction and perhaps lower limb issues. And then we'll just if you look through the part about computer work, I just wanted to note, if you read in blue there, that those responses may not accurately represent the actual ability of the EDS population. Survey respondents included only those individuals who were able to access and answer the survey online for themselves, or those who were able to find assistance answering the survey. So those answers could be skewed a bit towards overestimating the ability of EDSers to be on the computer. And then moving on then, you can see the details on the chart, and we'll go on to question 34. Do you experience physical consequences as a result of performing these activities? So obviously there's many factors related to one's ability to perform tasks. So even if a person attempts to do a task out of necessity, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will not experience injury or suffering as a result. So this graph explains the physical consequences EDSers often experience as a result of doing these everyday tasks. For example, 90% are unable to perform home maintenance, and home maintenance would include things like mowing the grass, raking leaves, painting, things like that, or they experience moderate to severe physical consequences if they attempt to do so. So we added in those three answers, which were in the red bar and the sort of brownish bar and the yellow bar to come up with that 90%. Again, we'll go through and group those three bars together for you on some of these other tasks. So for example, 76% have the same experience with house cleaning, and 57% are unable to stand for greater than 10 minutes or experience moderate to severe physical consequences in doing so. 61% have the same experience with shopping, and 58% have the same either inability or moderate to severe consequences with walking greater than 10 minutes. It's also noteworthy on this graph to note that only 6% experience no physical consequences if they are sitting for greater than 2 hours in the same position. So everyone else at 94% do experience some kind of consequences if they are not able to move and change position during that time. And so again, we have a chart here that's going to give you more details, which is definitely worth looking at later. And then we'll move on to the assistive devices that help manage pain or improve function. So more than 65% of the respondents indicated they utilize one or more of these assistive devices. For example, braces, 60%, specialty pillows, 58%. Bed toppers, which would be a cushion that you put in the top of your bed, might be foam or a feather bed, something like that, 54%. And then kinesio tape, which is a joint tape to help with stability, 42%. And kitchen gadgets, 41%. Those were very notable. And you can see there's some other devices that people also utilize here. And here's a continuation of some helpful items to improve function or pain. And you can see the details here on the chart as well. So moving on to some questions related to work. And respondents were asked if they were working now. And 43% reported they are unable to work outside the home at all because of their condition. 23% are unable to work, but they're receiving disability benefits. 20% are unable to work, but are not receiving disability benefits. 22% are working full-time, mostly out of the home. There are a few that were working from home. And then the same thing with part-time, 21% working part-time at home or outside the home. And this is a continuation of the question about their working status, just giving some more details and other options. As you can see, some people are stay-at-home moms or primary caregivers. We didn't really separate that according to whether the child caregivers were working or not, as far as those green and brown bars go. That gives you a little bit more detail on the chart here. And then going on to number 37, of course, EDS is a very disabling condition based on the reports of the respondents, and you've already seen that. So this shows that EDS significantly impacted 87% of the respondents' ability to work or get and keep a job. And we asked if they have a current job, have they told their employer about their medical condition? Now, after we adjusted the percentages to include only those who have the current job, we found that 22% have not told their employer about their condition. And then again, in the next graph, after adjusting the percentages to include only those that have a current job, we found that 77% of the employers are willing to make accommodations for medical conditions. Now that means 9% are not making accommodations. So this is for respondents that live in the United States. Here are the percentages that reflect only the 1,100 U.S. citizens who responded to this question. So we found that 38% have not applied for Social Security disability, even though they have difficulty working. That's a pretty big number. 20% are able to work, and therefore they have not applied. And 20% were approved for government disability, and 12% are still in the application process. And then 10% received a rejection for their application for disability. So the next graph talks about your PCP, your primary healthcare provider. And of course, EDS is a very complex multi-systemic health condition, and it's critical to have a PCP who can coordinate care, referrals, provide insurance authorizations, monitor your medication list, assist with much of the paperwork required for disability-related records. A lot of that isn't billable, so it's a lot of extra work for them to take care of a complex condition. And only 68% of respondents have a PCP who coordinates their care. And we asked if not, why don't they have a PCP that coordinates the care? And the 530 respondents is what's represented here. And then 49% reported that they cannot find a PCP who understands EDS. 33 said they can't find one who's willing to learn. And 11% cannot find a PCP willing to accept them as a patient. Many of them reported the PCP would not address their issues related to EDS. So this chart will give you a little bit more detail on that. And next we asked about any recent training your PCP might have received on EDS, but this would exclude education by patient. You know, oftentimes patients are going to be trying to inform their doctor as much as they're willing to listen to that. So nearly 7% of respondents say their doctor has had recent education on EDS, excluding that by a patient, and more than 56% reported that their PCP has not received EDS education. Another 37% weren't sure. And again, on the section related to PCPs, we asked about referrals, and 26% of respondents indicated their PCP has refused to refer them to a specialist. And we were curious, moving on to doctors other than PCPs, how many doctors or healthcare providers are part of your healthcare team? And we asked 1,636 respondents replied to this question. 52% reported between 3 to 6 providers. 25% reported 7 or more. And of those, 10% reported more than 10 providers. Only 21% reported 2 or fewer. And what providers or specialists have you seen or do you see? So currently or in the past. And respondents have used 37 different healthcare providers. As you can see here, the top 10 include PCP, physical therapist or physiotherapist, rheumatologist, dentist, neurologist, cardiologist, geneticist, a psychologist or counselor, a gastroenterologist, OBGYN, and that would be the top 10 there. So you can see the rest of them after that. As we flip to the next slide, you can see some more here. Question 49, we asked if the patients were aware of EDS specialty clinics. There were 1,544 responses to this question, and 67% were not aware of any EDS specialty clinics. And then moving on to this very detailed graph here, 54% of the respondents reported that they have received negative or invalidating comments from their providers. Some of the most frequent you can see here are comments like it's all in your head, or there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing more I can do for you, or you really shouldn't be in that much pain. Some of these, comments reflect the lack of understanding about the condition, as well as the provider's frustration with a chronic illness that's so complex. Sometimes they're not sure what to do for you. So you can go through some of these comments on your own on the detailed slides we provide. Going on to the next graph, this is related to healthcare expenditures, and we're quantifying this in U.S. dollars. So 41% of the 1,155 U.S. respondents spend more than $3,600 per year for their health care. Now, as you can see, this is excluding insurance premiums, so it's anything that you would pay, co-pays, any of your durable medical equipment, prescriptions, also if you use any OTC medications, or if you have surgeries or other treatments needed. That was a fairly significant number. And now we're going to move on to the section related to exercise and physical therapy. And the first thing we asked was about the patient's personal exercise practices. So this would not include their PT exercises or anything that was prescribed for them to do physically. 61% of the respondents report that most exercise hurts me. 23% indicate that exercise is very helpful, and 20% report that they exercise regularly. Also worth noting is 42% say that their exercise participation is erratic, so most likely that's due to, injuries, and it's just challenging to be consistent with that with a chronic condition like EDS. And you can see the detailed chart here for more specific comments made about exercise. We're going to move on to physical therapy specifically, or physiotherapy as it's often called in Europe. So 37% here said physical therapy has improved my function. And almost 37% said physical therapy has been a positive experience. And 34% said my insurance limits my visits. Almost 32% have not found a PT who knows about EDS. And sadly, 31% have been injured by a physical therapist. And you can look at some of the comments on this chart here as well. 28% physical therapy does not help me feel better. Okay, and then moving on to the next chart. What modalities of physical therapy have been helpful? Because we want to know, we don't just want to know whether it's working or not working. We want to know what can we do to make it successful. So this is an interesting chart. You may want to go back and look at it in more depth on your own later. This may need a little bit of explanation. You can see the key at the bottom there that tells you what the colors represent. White indicates that the modality does not apply to that group of respondents. So they chose NA. Maybe they are not using these modalities. Maybe they have not tried them before. So, for example, if you look at the top there, heat packs, about 74% find them helpful So I'm adding up the gray and the green bars together to come up with that number. And then massage tends to be pretty helpful, 65%. Core strengthening, 56%. And cold packs, a little bit lower at 53%. Aquatic exercise, 54%. And we do hear about that being pretty helpful for most people. And this next graph is a continuation here, and something worth noting is, as you see from the red on the chart here, the red represents harmful. A lot of the respondents felt that strengthening with weights is largely considered harmful for them, as is exercise with cardio equipment. So you can go ahead and look through that a little bit more on your own. A lot of information here on that chart. So moving on here to pain relief through physical therapy. And 35% of the 1,623 respondents reported mild relief from physical therapy. So it is somewhat helpful, and moderate relief at 23%. So that's good news. 7% reported high relief. Later in the survey, it's noted that we asked if they wanted more information about physical therapy, and 48% of people requested to be sent more information. So this chart here, we didn't do a graph because it was a little bit too busy and hard to read. So on this chart, we're talking about support from mostly online or in person. 1,550 respondents said that they are receiving enough support from their parents, 48%. Enough support from their spouse, 48%. Friends that have EDS, 43%. From their children, only 28%. And siblings or an extended family, only 20% receiving enough support from those sources. So again, this is real detailed. You may want to look through this on your own later. And another colorful chart here for you, similar to the one we looked at before. So if you look at the key at the bottom here, blue is somewhat helpful as far as the sources of information and education. Orange is very helpful. Note that the gray bar is where participants chose not applicable, so they may not be aware of these sources of information, or maybe they haven't tried them. 1,500 respondents reported on this, and 56% say that online articles are very helpful, and 40% somewhat helpful. Medical papers, 54% very helpful, and 36% somewhat. Facebook groups, 47% helpful, and 35% somewhat. And EDS webinars or lectures, 47% say they're very helpful, and 25% somewhat. And similar with the national groups, 47% said that they're very helpful, and 29% somewhat. And lastly, the online discussion boards, 38% say those are very helpful, and 32% say they're somewhat helpful. And then question 58, we just display the chart here, not the graph, but this was related to whether people want to share information with each other or others. And so what statements reflect your feelings about sharing information? 78% say they want to share with interested medical professionals. 73% say, I think we need to work together and help one another. And 69% say they enjoy sharing experiences to help others with Ehlers-Danlos. And only 28% say sometimes they find sharing is overwhelming. Very few don't want to share or are very private. Very small percentages there. And then we move on to the next graph about interacting with others. And we see that 76% participate in Facebook or social media, and 10% more are interested in doing that. 45% participate in online discussion boards. An additional 28% are interested. 20% report participating in local EDS support groups, but there's a lot of interest in doing so. 60% additional people are interested in local support groups, potentially because there isn't one in their area. 6% participate in national educational conferences, and 70% are interested. 6% attend local EDS awareness activities, and 67% are interested in doing so. Only 5% participate in local educational conferences, and 79% more are interested in that. So here's our last question, asking for more information. We had, you can see on the chart here, 66% requesting more information about pain management, 59% more information about EDS surveys, 58% want webinars by expert healthcare providers, 55% want more information about local support groups, 47% want more information about physical therapy, and 30% about filing for disability in the United States. And we'll be providing those resources to the people who requested the information. So thanks for hanging with me here through all this great detail that we went over. This concludes our presentation of the EDS Worldwide Survey results. And we'd like to thank the 2,554 EDS patients who participated in the survey and the support group leaders who helped us with the preparation and survey results. And again, we're going to have this webinar and a PDF of the slides we just presented, and a summary booklet posted on our website at edsawareness.com or chronicpainpartners.com. So if you have any questions about the results, or if you're interested in our programs, please do contact us at info@edsawareness.com. The email is listed there at the bottom of your screen. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John here for the conclusion.
Well, thank you again for all of you who attended our presentation this evening. Please distribute this to others who could be interested in learning more about the survey results. So we really appreciate those that have attended, and we're going to, as Dee was mentioning, we're going to post this information on our site and make it available to those who find that it's information that they'd like to have. We're very excited about this information. We're also very excited about the work that our support group leaders did to be able to put this information together. So unfortunately, we are not taking questions this evening, but please, as Dee was mentioning, If you have any questions or comments, please send them to us at info@edsawareness.com. So this concludes our session for this evening, and we really appreciate your attention, and have a good evening. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.